Ladies and gentlemen, that time of week, it's John Canzano. I always feel like a big, Price is Right guy. John Canzano Show.
Come
Brought
on
to you
down.
by Zeke's Pizza, homegrown of the Northwest, Zeke'sPizza.com. Follow John on Twitter, John Canzano BFT. The Bald Faced Truth Radio station down there in Portland, Oregon, 750 The Game. 3 to 6 p.m. every single day. And, of course, John joins us every week. We are inside the Puck Sports Studios built by Limback Lumber. Thank you to Limback Lumber, a fine sponsor of Puck Sports. You're recovering from your Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah.
I bet you got after it, didn't you?
Yeah, got after it. We had a lot of our kids' friends from school come over to the house, so it was like the pickup line at the elementary school in our kitchen. That was all the moms and dads you just see in passing. And so what an underwhelming game, huh?
Yeah.
Like, people complaining about the halftime show. What about the first, second, and third and fourth quarters?
The game was awful.
Game was not good, not compelling, but I was happy to see the Eagles win. I think it was good for football not to have the Chiefs win again. Taylor Swift got booed. I mean, this was different.
I do love how that was the storyline. She got booed. How did Travis take that? Okay, I've got a lot to unpack there with the party. I want to circle back to the party, but I want to start. You bring something up. I wanted to see the Chiefs win. Okay. That really needed them to win, but that's fine. But I'm a big history guy. I love when people can accomplish something that's never been accomplished before. And that's what I was rooting for the Chiefs, even if I didn't bet on them. I just wanted to see something I've never seen before, and that would be to win 3 straight. You see, you're the opposite. You wanted to be preserved for sports, that no one gets a three-peat.
No, but here's the thing. I mean, you're hitting on something that I think is an interesting, sociology experiment. It's not that you wanted to see something that had never happened before, because lots of things that never happened before happen all the time. It's that you wanted to be there to witness it. You wanted to say you were alive when the team won 3 straight Super Bowls. And this is a interesting phenomenon because, I wrote about this last week, that I was in China for the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. And Michael Phelps swam 8 races. He won 8 gold medals. He set 7 world records. It was the most dominant Olympic performance in history. I was curious, how that was flying with the Chinese nationals, because they wanted their Olympics to be the greatest ever. They were in this race with the United States for at the top of the medal table. And so I went off to a small village when Phelps was swimming in his 7th race, just to kind of view it through the eyes of people in this town. And so I went to this neighborhood where these shopkeepers were watching the Olympics on TV, and I watched with them. They were rooting for Phelps for the same reason you were rooting for Mahomes. They wanted to see greatness at their Olympics. They wanted it to be the best ever. They set aside their nationalism and said, it's better for this Olympics, and it's better for me if I can see something that has never happened before. I just find that interesting that, we are all in this thing. And when you say who's the greatest athlete of all time, you're going to get this recency bias that we have all witnessed. You're not going to get people saying Jim Thorpe, even though he should be in that conversation, or Jackie Robinson or Jesse Owens. These, they should be in that conversation. But you're going to get people saying, "Oh, I'm witnessing the best thing that has ever happened." And I think there's a little bit of arrogance. I'm not picking on you here. There's a little bit of human arrogance. Like when you go to the Natural Living History Museum in New York, you realize how short a time we've been on Earth. And how arrogant we all are to think oh, this is an artifact, this is an antique. And then they go, no. People in China invented steel. Your lunch pail that you had in 1977 should not be in an antique store. But there's something, Puck, about sociology that's wrapped up in this. And about half of us, I noted, were rooting against it. And the other half were rooting for it as we watched the game, even in our house.
You remember your first lunch pail that you had, that was a design of a TV show? What was it? It was
no, I didn't. I had the General Lee. What was that show called?
Oh, Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard. I had a Dukes of Hazzard lunch pail. And then I morphed into the lunch pail that every young child in my elementary school had. I had the 28 NFL teams and their helmets on a lunch pail.
Do you remember the small helmets you collect? Oh,
yeah.
Daddies love that.
This came up yesterday because the book fair is going on again at my kid's school.
Yeah.
And my kid, again, went to the book fair and brought me home a gift. Can I share it with you real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. Look what she got me, because I'm a sports writer, sports columnist.
Yeah, love it.
All the NFL teams, in case I forget.
Yeah, well, you might.
In case I forget.
Yeah, you could. I bought my son those small helmets, right?
Yeah.
And so he doesn't do it anymore, but a couple of years ago, he would every week would put it in the standings like I used to do.
Yeah.
Here are the standings this week. Here's in first place in the AFC East. And I was like, God,
I love that.
The best. Dukes of Hazzard, great one. God, I used to love that one. Mine was G.I. Joe's.
G.I. Joe's
lunch pail. God, I wish those lunch pails would make a comeback.
Probably will, man.
They probably are.
You would carry one. I would carry that NFL lunch pail with 28 helmets on it. I'd carry it today. I don't care.
All right. Here's why when you get in the debate of like the best or this is the single greatest sports achievement or the greatest athlete, I always look at it through the lens of my eyes, because I can't talk about Jesse Owens.
Right.
I can't talk about guys who played, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. I didn't see those guys. I never saw Babe Ruth. So I always, who's the greatest baseball player of all time? I just always default to King Griffey Jr. because I'm like, that's what I watched.
Right.
Like, I can't compare him to Willie Mays. I never saw Willie Mays play. I mean, I read his stats.
Then we shouldn't even be having this debate, really. We should just say who's the greatest player you've ever seen.
Yeah, that's why
that's what it is, right? Yeah. Like, and it's almost like, I'm big on ancestry too. I can go down that rabbit hole and look at, generations of but nobody else in my family's into it. And so I start talking about 2 generations ago in Italy, and it's like it never happened to these kids that live in my house. And I'm thinking hey, in 2 generations, I'm gone. Nobody's going to be talking about this show. 2 generations were erased.
I think we're going to make such an impact on society that this will be we'll be put in that little capsule. When they go to Mars, we'll be one of the first things to look back on our time. Okay, let me circle back to the party. Yeah. Big party, lots of people there, right?
That was a big controversy too, because I asked my wife, how many people are coming? I was doing one of those pools, the square pool, 100 squares, right? Yeah. And I went and got some gift cards. I'm the host of the party. I'm the game maker. So I said, how many people are coming over to this party? And my wife says, we have 14 people coming. So I did some math and I said, okay, everybody's going to get 7 squares. We'll make have a couple bonus squares left over.
Right.
Well, first people started showing up, put in 7. And then I started kind of looking around, Puck, and I started going, wait a minute, there's more than 14 people here.
Right.
Turns out my wife didn't tell me that she wasn't counting the 5 people who live in this house. And she was sick. So now I got a square problem. I have to go back with whiteout and be like, hey, you can't have this square. You can't have this square. Caused a big problem. Big problem.
Lots of hens talking, because that's what my party was. I tried to sit in the front so I could just watch the game. A little bit. Yeah. I'm there for the game, but then it's just nonstop during just the entire game. And I just at one point, and then the game was going to get away was pretty quickly. So then I didn't care anymore. Once we got to halftime, but in the first quarter, I'm like, just for the love of God, can you guys just shut up for just a little bit? Because I knew what was going to happen. The second the commercials came on,
right.
Commercials. I'm like, can you guys just find your own room?
Yeah.
Maybe I should just.
You need multiple TVs going, is what you need.
There needs to be a one room that's just for the people that want to watch the game, and then another room for the hens.
I did a dumb thing. I went out the day before and I bought a new TV. I went bigger because I realized I had about 4 inches of space more that I could expand. So I was like, you know what? We're wasting 2 inches on this side of the TV and 2 inches. We need a bigger TV. And so we upgraded. And I was that guy standing at the TV store on the day before the Super Bowl.
Jeez, and we got it all set up and it worked.
Yeah.
Oh, see, if I did that, there's no way the TV would have worked.
Oh, it worked.
It would have been yelling and screaming, and then my wife.
Oh, there was some yelling and screaming.
She would have came in and okay, I'll do it, and then she would have done it all.
There was some frustration. It's almost like being on a boat ramp with a boat when you're trying to put the boat in the water.
Nothing worse than that.
Trying to get that TV hung up. I can lift it up. It's 90 pounds. You're gonna have to attach the bolts in the back. No.
Last summer, 2 summers ago, almost ended a marriage on the boat ramp. Jesus, just yelling and screaming, and that's a study in the human psychology and relationships. Is a boat ramp at 5:30.
Yeah, just go get a lawn chair, set yourself on the boat ramp, have a cool beverage. You're gonna have an enjoyable summer day.
All right. Last week we talked about the media deal. You told us last week, hey, I expect something to happen. The media deal to happen actually before expansion. Look for that first week of the NCAA March Madness. We got a separate report, I think, from Front Office Sports that, and again, this probably shouldn't surprise anyone. CBS, Fox, ESPN, they're all interested in the Pac-12. Where do anything change from last week when we last spoke on the Pac-12 media deal? Yeah,
yesterday in the Monday mailbag, I reported that I talked to a couple of more sources with the Pac-12. I'm just getting more affirmation, Puck, that media piece is very likely to come first. Like everybody thinks it's going to come first because the media companies have told the Pac-12 it doesn't matter who you add. School 8, School 9, is it UNLV? Is it Texas State? Is it Memphis, Tulane, Nevada, Air Force? Doesn't matter. These are interchangeable. So the feedback that the Pac-12 got was that, hey, these pieces are all interchangeable. So, the media consultants I talk with and obviously the sources of the Pac-12 all sort of say that this points toward a media deal first, then followed shortly after with an expansion announcement. I know the Pac-12 expects something to happen soon. I had an AD who told me yesterday, I'm just paraphrasing, we expect something soon. I had a second source say, yes, it's going to be early spring. So I do still hold to that kind of March Madness, first week of March Madness deadline. I know they'd like to beat it. Maybe they'd like to beat expectations given what the Pac-12 has been through in the last 2 years. But I think that's kind of where they're going. So now the question is, do they take a value proposition like Texas State that really doesn't offer a lot in the way of football brand? It gets you into Texas a little bit, but Texas State might be willing to come for a deep discount. Maybe they don't get media rights distributions in the first couple of years of the deal. Maybe they're paying their way in. I don't know, but there's a bottom line there that has to be considered, especially if you're not going just to 8 football schools. If you're going to 9, could they be number 9? So keep an eye on Texas State as a value add. But I still think the best in the West, everything they said about being the best in the West holds up. Because, if you're going to go down to those AAU, those American Athletic Conference schools, Memphis and Tulane, I think you're looking at big travel expenses for basketball and baseball and everything else that you're going to play. So the question is, can you get them at the right number? I still think UNLV and Nevada would be keep you regional. Keep an eye on Texas State, but I don't think there's any new players here. The fact that the ACC held together with that ESPN deal, I think, kind of shut the chaos factor down to hey, it's just a handful of schools, maybe 5 or 6 schools that are serious contenders here that the Pac-12 would look at. And I was told that the 8 that they have in the room right now, which includes Gonzaga, 7 all sports schools plus Gonzaga doesn't play football. The 8 in the room were the 8 that shared this vision. So they feel like they have everybody in the room that they absolutely needed. Now it's more about options and not targets. I had somebody say that to me yesterday. It's not necessarily targets. It's just options because there's a plan A, a plan B, plan C. Which option do they pick?
Give me the argument. Give me the pros and cons of Texas State. I listened to you and Wilner on your latest podcast discuss Texas State.
Yeah, I don't love Texas State. Wilner is bullish on it. I
know why Wilner's bullish on it because he stumbled across the same video I stumbled across this week about some lake they've got there on campus and watching all the scenery.
Right. The scenery on it's a warm winter day in Texas. Look, it gets you into Texas. And it just gets you. It gets a toe into Texas, right? It's the pinky toe that you're getting into Texas. You're not coming in getting even an SMU or certainly not getting one of the big Texas schools, but it gets you into Texas from a recruiting standpoint. If you're these schools, is that important to the schools that are in the room right now? Secondarily, there's a value addition here that you would get Texas State at a reduced exit fee from their conference. would be a fraction of what these other schools are having to pay to leave. There's a potential here that Texas State is so motivated that, they could take a really low distribution or no distribution in early years of the media deal. So it's not more mouths to feed. It's just more inventory. There's some advantage there, especially, Puck, if you want to go to 9. Like from a scheduling standpoint, if you're at 8 schools, you've got to buy 4 non-conference. You got to find 4 non-conference games. If you're at 9, now you're down to, hey, now we don't need to schedule quite as heavily. So I think that there's a real motivation there to try to get to 9 and not have that extra conference game. That could be a $500,000 payday game that everybody has to pay for to go out and find another opponent. So maybe Texas State from a penciling out standpoint makes a little bit of sense to add as the 9th school, but I don't like them as number 8. But, the cons there are no football brand, very little proof of performance in football. I think from a standpoint of like when you added Gonzaga and Boise State and company, you got a real boost if you're the Pac-12. I think it would be viewed, Texas State would be viewed as a, less than move by the Pac-12. So I think there's a little bit of a hit to the kind of the brand of the conference if you take them and nobody else. But I think that's the case, pro and con on Texas State. The others, you want me to go into the others?
Sure.
UNLV, look, you're getting Vegas. You're getting a school that is being viewed by the rest of the Mountain West Conference as, gosh, that's going to be the team to beat in the Mountain West Conference if they stay put. And in fact, I talked to one of the other coaches in the Mountain West who said he's kind of secretly and selfishly rooting for UNLV to end up in the Pac-12 because he says it would make my life easier. And he says better for the Mountain West if they stayed, better for me if they go. So I think there's a viewpoint that UNLV, even though they have financial struggles, they've got an NFL stadium, they've got Vegas, where emerging sports market keeps you regional, best of the West. And then I'll also pair in, you wouldn't take Nevada without UNLV, but if it's Nevada and UNLV, now you're really regional. You got a travel partner there. And certainly, Nevada does not have the shine that UNLV has, but you're adding a basketball school to that stable of basketball schools that really make this conference, promising. Memphis and Tulane, you sort of end the conversation about, is anybody else going to get that group of 5 playoff berth if it still exists in the playoff format going forward? If you grab Memphis, I don't even need Tulane for this conversation. If you grab Memphis, you grab a basketball school and a football school that are top 25 in both sports. And so I think from a competition standpoint, Memphis, UNLV is your best tandem. Going to cost you the most, though. And I think there's a question about the travel to Memphis for your other sports. Do you take them? And then beyond that, Puck, I think there's a 10th school out there that is a basketball school only. And I'm really looking at St. Mary's and what they're doing in the WCC. They don't have a great gym. Their home gym is, needs upgrades, but Randy Bennett and what St. Mary's has done in the last 5-6 seasons, you take them in a heartbeat. Now you got a basketball product that really sings.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I'm full go there on St. Mary's. Speaking of basketball, what do you make of the schools that left right to the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12? I mean, when you look at the success, it's been really only 3 teams. It's been Arizona, they're in the Big 12. UCLA in the Big Ten. They've righted the ship a little bit. They actually righted the ship after Cronin yelled at everyone, and so they're pretty set in the Big Ten. And then it's, I don't know if it's a surprise, but it's Stanford in the ACC there with Kyle Smith. Why have they found success and then the rest of them have not? I mean, Washington is going to miss the Big Ten tournament. Yeah. There's 15 teams that go to the Big Ten tournament at 18, and they're going to likely miss it. I mean, that's just a massive failure for Danny Sprinkle in Washington. But why has Dana Altman struggled? Why are these other teams struggled so much, but those 3 have not? Yeah. Altman's lost 5 in a row, and he's 66 years old, and there's questions about how much longer does he want to coach. I don't think he's going to throw the keys in this season, but I think he has to be looking at I think these are all case by case. Okay. And in Oregon's case, I think Dana Altman has been slow to adapt to this world of NIL and the portal, which is really strange to me because he was like at the forefront of transfers
early on. He had a
Yeah.
roster where he had 8, 9, 10 transfers. I do think it sort of points to Division Street Inc., the collective at Oregon, and makes me wonder about how much money what percentage of their NIL deals are going to football versus men's basketball. Some of these schools have just pointed all their resources towards football because they know that, that's 85% of your value, and that's what's going to move the needle. And you want to invest. Any business is going to invest in the thing that's giving them a return on that investment. And so football is providing the biggest return. So you see a lot of schools who are, I think, going all in that way. I think Altman, though, has been slow to get it. He added Tony Stubblefield, his old assistant, who was there with him when they were taking all the transfers. I'm eager to see if that manifests itself. But Dana Altman also does this thing. He does this little rope-a-dope, right? He lost 5 in a row. He's about to go on, I have 6 games left in the season. I think they'll go 6-0 or 5-1 to finish the season. Look at their schedule. Still, it's an underwhelming season because they had some really promising early wins, and really, it's Jackson Shellstead, it's Nate Biddle, nobody else on that roster. But that's all.
TJ Bamba.
Yeah,
still playing basketball.
Bamba shooting too many threes. But here's the thing, though. Mick Cronin, UCLA, they can complain all they want, but UCLA is a basketball school, and they're doing what a basketball school should do. Arizona's a basketball school. Right. Stanford's not a football school anymore, and they got Kyle Smith. He's a hell of a coach. So I think you can point to those success stories, and you can, it makes sense to me. The question is, for Washington and Oregon in particular, how much do they want to win in basketball? I had a high-level donor at Oregon tell me this morning that, look, it was a pipe dream to think Oregon could win a national championship in basketball years ago, and Dana Altman got to a Final Four. And the donor said, it looks like that window is closing based on what's happening in the ecosystem. You got the SEC schools pouring some money into basketball. They have more money to spend. The revenue sharing is coming next season. It's going to be real tricky for teams like Oregon and Washington who say, hey, we got to matter in football. I think you're going to see a lot of those other sports drop down in tiers. And the non-revenue generating sports especially, I think you're going to see coaches leave. We've already seen it at Oregon, volleyball coach leaving for Kansas. I think you're going to see coaches leave and go to schools that are investing in those programs because Oregon and Washington have to make some decisions.
I'm not picking on Washington. I'm really not. I think it's the greatest waste of $2 million I've ever seen a program spend on a player in the great Osabor. He's a fine player, but come on. I mean, you think that's buyer's remorse for them? They spent $2 million on a guy that can't lift the team, and they're not even going to make their tournament in the league in which 15 of the 18 make it.
Yeah,
I just hope I would, and I think Sprinkles is a fine coach. I just think any program's got to take a step back and go, what are we doing here? Why are we investing so much money in players? I mean, I don't take the $2 million and spread it out on the whole team.
Yeah.
Don't spend it all on one guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of trial and error going on.
Yeah, that's true. Let's go.
There is. It's just early, and the colleges were not equipped to act like NFL organizations or NBA organizations with a salary cap and a GM. They're all hiring that person now. You see it. It's like on a daily basis. You see these schools that are rolling out, we've just hired a director of player personnel or a guy who's going to be in the GM position for the school. But I think it's no different than pro sports. I mean, you see bad investments all the time.
Yeah, fair.
You see NFL teams, NBA teams, Major League Baseball teams sign bad contracts. You're going to have bad contracts in college basketball.
And here's the thing about Osabor, if he were on a team that had better talent around him because of how he can pass and facilitate, he'd be great. He'd be a great addition. Making him the focal point of the team was a mistake.
He's a $500,000 guy, not a $2 million guy, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I want to share something with you, and hopefully it comes across here. And if it doesn't, you're like, hey, you don't know how to work technology. There's a big story up here in Seattle about a fight, well, not a fight, a parent in youth sports. Yeah, color me shocked if you heard this stuff before.
Yeah, I'm already shaking my head.
Got on the ice, and see if you can see this.
Yeah.
You can see the video I'm sharing. A dad came on the ice in a 12U hockey game and ended up shoving there's the kid on the ground, ended up shoving 2 teenage referees to the ground. Here's the better video. You can see him walking on the ice. He confronted these 2, shoves a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old to the ground. This is a parent of one of the kids on the team. And again, a 12U hockey team, rec league, that this was at the Seattle Kraken Ice Complex, by the way, because they host all these games. He has been charged. Well, he hasn't been charged yet. He was stopped by police. They found him at leaving at a red light, and they've said, "Hey, we've got enough probable cause for a misdemeanor assault." Now, I think it's got to be much more than a misdemeanor, and I don't know why this happens, and this isn't unique. This happens in every youth sport. It's why we don't have any more referees anymore. Yeah. It's why they're not coming out anymore. I coach two middle school basketball teams. One's a JV team, one's a JVC team, which is essentially just 6th graders. We don't have any referees for the JVC games for 6th grade middle school basketball because they just simply don't want to ref it because of the attitude and the response from parents. I guarantee that's the number one reason. What do you think should happen to this individual?
Well, I think it's a bigger issue, but yeah, this guy should face consequences and not be allowed back into the arena to cheer at a game. And I always just feel like that, we always look to the police and we look to the league to do the policing of this stuff. And yes, when it comes to an assault, or somebody shoving a kid down, you absolutely should be charged. But I feel like there's other parents in the crowd, and I've been at youth sport. My kid played club volleyball, my oldest daughter, and I was sitting by a guy who was a dentist, who is like a normal, rational human being, functional in his job in every other way. And, a 15-year-old girl who was working as like the lines judge missed a call, and he went berserk. And I literally was like, dude, like, come on. Like, that's like your daughter out there. They blew a call. So what? And he was beside himself in a way that I was like, man, like what happens to us in that situation? But I think we have to keep each other accountable too, Puck. Like the other parents that are around this person as he's getting worked up in the stands. If you see someone on your kid's sports team who's lost their way, put your arm around him and be like, dude, come on. Like all of us have seen enough youth sports events to know this is not life and death. Your scholarship is not hanging in the balance. If you're that worked up about it, you shouldn't be inside the venue. You shouldn't be at the Diamond. You shouldn't be at the field. The games would be better without parents there. We all know it. The games would be better. The pressure would be off the kids. There would be no yelling. There'd be no expectations. The parents I saw a case too of a parent who has a kid playing multiple sports who back channeled with like the tournament directors to try to get the game times moved so that their kid could make, both tournaments. And I'm going like, what if we all did that with our, soccer kid that is, playing lacrosse, for example, in our household? Like, we can't be doing this. Like, stop trying to control everything as parents and just recognize that one of the beautiful things about youth sports is it gives our kids a safe place to fail. That is the most valuable thing. It is a safe place to fail. We should not be trying to game the system and control it to have our kid have success and yell at the referee. And when something goes bad in life, blame someone else or walk out on the ice and shove a kid down. Yeah. The truth of the matter is bad things are going to happen, Puck. People die. You lose a job. You have a bad relationship. Bad shit happens. And so at the end of the day, you have to know that this youth sports experiment, the most valuable thing is that kids can build resilience and realize when something bad happens in the game, you get a bad call, something unfair happens. It's not the end of the world. You just back, you overcome it.
Yeah. My first thought was to the kid on the team that his parent, that was his father, and just about how miserable I would imagine those car rides are going home are. That was my first response. Just how miserable that must be. Yeah. If you have a parent that does that, what is it like on the car ride home? It's probably hell for that kid.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not what it's supposed to be. No. And and look, I love like CYO sports where they make kids and the parents pledge, hey, we're not here for our enjoyment. We're here to kind of, there's some truth in that. Like volleyball again, look, my kid played on a really good club. They won the region. They went to nationals. They were good. All right. She had two players on her team that are playing, Big Ten volleyball now. One at Oregon, one at Washington. Okay. Two players on her club team. At 12 years old, Puck, I could have told you those two kids were going to play D1 volleyball. Like, it didn't matter what any of us did or how much we yelled. And so just get your feet on the ground as a parent. Like, the fact of the matter is that vast majority of these kids are not going to get scholarships. And what they're going to remember is what a jackass you were at the game if you were a parent.
We got two. Let's transition back to college sports. We got two new, the sane sport, right? College athletics. We got two new presidents, one at Washington, and one at Washington State. What did you learn from the new Washington State president, Elizabeth Cantwell? Do we have a feeling that she's going to be pro sports?
Yeah, I think more than a feeling, because remember I talked to those regents right before Christmas, and they were really mad at Kirk Schultz, the outgoing president. Now his tenure was supposed to end June 30th. Right. He was supposed to go into July, and that was going to be his retirement. And they have fast tracked that. So this is going to be an early departure for Schultz, who will move into a consultant role. They've had enough of him. There was questions about, he did not follow their directives and whatnot. So the regents are, they're the ones making the hire. And I actually think that the Schultz behavior benefits Washington State sports fans, because the regents were very focused going into this hiring process on getting somebody who understood sports, who understood the value of it. Of course, the rest of the campus stuff matters, but they understood that this was the front porch of the university and that you can boost enrollment. And all these presidents are worried about enrollment, and they're worried about enrollment in Pullman, that you can boost your enrollment by improving your brand in athletics. It is one of the easiest ways to boost enrollment. And so, one of the trustees, one of the regents told me, we've got to get this right. I had another one tell me she absolutely understands sports. Now, the new president walked into this meeting that they had to introduce her. She was wearing crimson tennis shoes. One of the regents texted me and said, she has crimson tennis shoes on. Like, that's evidence that she's going to be about sports, right? So
because of the tennis shoes.
But everybody's looking for, because this matters in this era. If you don't have a president who understands, that sports are important, and that you're going to have to hold off the rest of campus and explain to the law school and explain to the business school that this football thing matters, because it will help bring revenue in and gift giving in that fuels everybody. It's going to lift all boats, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have that president, you don't have a chance. And so I do think this is a good hire for Washington State. I think they, no question, feel like they've got somebody who understands sports and will support the mission. They would not have hired her if they didn't hear that in the interview process. And
I would assume the same is for Robert J. Jones, who's the new president of Washington. Yeah. I mean, you think about it. I mean, you do a survey of these kids, that attend, let's just use Washington for an example. How many were swayed because they're watching TV one day and it's a September 15th game, and they're playing USC. Oh my God, look at that environment. Yeah. That looks fun. Oh, they boat to the games. It looks nice there. There's mountains in the background. That's a lake. I think I want to go to school there. Yeah, it's an advertisement that permeates the corners of our society, and Washington hires a president who's got a background in the Big Ten. I mean, it's right. This is not accidental. Oregon did the same thing, and you got a new chancellor at UCLA. You have all this turnover right now, but all of it's pointed in the same direction. One of the regents at Washington State told me that, you've got an enrollment issue in Pullman. We need to boost enrollment. We need the regent said, we need more people to say, I choose WSU. Right. And the regent said, I cannot separate that from athletics, because they know these things go together. And so I think they know it at Washington. They know it at Washington State. All of these hires are sports flavored, and they didn't used to be. All right, you had a couple more things that will cut you loose. One, you had Max Brown on your show. I think it was last week. He stirred maybe more than that. He stirred the pot with Wazoo fans. Like, people are like, God, what's wrong with you? You becoming like Stephen A. Smith, Max Brown? Are you aware of what he did? He did like his tears
Yes.
Okay, and I would assume that's why you got him on to talk to him about it. What's he doing? We know Max Brown. I like Max. He played high school football out here. He was a legend at Skyline High School. What is he doing? Is he just trying to be a pot stirrer?
No, I think he was. I think there was some truth in what he was saying, in that, like, hey, look, there are certain tiers within these conferences, and look at. I mean, the Big 12 is a great example. Like, there's just this muddled mess of things, but he did it in a way, I think, that slapped Washington State fans in the face. I mean, it's just I don't think that was necessary. I think he's done a really good job for a guy who was the Gatorade National Player of the Year, 5-star guy. He goes to USC. He plays for, Steve Sarkisian and Helton, and he plays for Lane Kiffin, and, it didn't work out for him. Like, his whole college experience was just this, sort of flop. And he ends up, I think, reinventing himself as a guy who is really self-deprecating on social media and saying, it didn't work out for me. And I find that part of him really charming. I just think he misfired on this. And I think we've all been in that situation where I think his point was the Big 12 doesn't have as many tiers, or the ACC doesn't have as many tiers. Pac-12 was much more tiered back in the day. And you have to remember, he comes at it from being a USC guy who was viewing, himself as the top tier, and the school he was at was a top tier school. He also mentioned in the interview with me that, he talked seriously with Mike Leach, and in hindsight, going to play for Leach might have been the better thing for Max Brown. Like,
well, I mean, my thing is, I would have had Washington. I mean, if we're talking about the history of the conference, Washington's is in top tier. Is one, because I think he only had Oregon and USC. I mean, Washington's in the top tier. And listen, you can't have Arizona above Washington State. You can't. Not in football.
But some of that is his,
or Arizona State, for that matter.
Some of that is, like, sometimes I find that the players who were immersed in it, they don't have an accurate view of it. They were sold an idea of what the conference was, and it's not the view that I have of the conference.
Hey, he did his job. He stirred the pot. He got people all worked up, and people reacted to it.
Yeah.
All right, last thing for you. You talked to Wilner about this. I think you and I share the same opinion on this one, because we weathered the same storm, I think, a week or two ago, like Snowmageddon, and then it snowed like, I don't know, a half an inch, and then school gets canceled, and then there's a 2-hour delay. Or at least up here, there was a 2-hour delay, and then all the kids got to do work online. Here's my issue with it, and I want to know if you have this issue with it. Yeah. Let the kids have a damn snow day.
I know.
If you're going to have a snow day, let them have a snow day. They should go out and play in the snow, not have to sit and do schoolwork. We're not going to fall behind anybody, all right? They don't do anything online anyways. They're texting their friends left and right. Let them go enjoy it, sled down the hill. Yeah. Okay, if there's actually snow. The other thing is, how about a 2-hour delay, and then we'll just wait to see if the snow melts, which it all did. And we've got games canceled for basketball, and I'm looking outside. I'm like, it's sunny and 35. There's not an inch of snow on the ground. Why are we canceling stuff?
Yeah, we don't know how to handle ourselves is the easy answer. We're just lost. And I'll compound it. Look, my wife worked in TV news for 20 years as an anchor and a reporter, and she was that reporter they would send up to, like, Mount Hood on a snowy day, or stick her out at the freeway interstate, when people are getting stuck. And they were always hamming it up, like, you shouldn't be out, and they were always overplaying the Snowmageddon. But we had a Snowmageddon that turned into a No-Mageddon situation that week, because the kids went to bed thinking there was going to be snow. We got a light dusting of snow, and then we got a text from the school district saying school's on and there will be no delay. And then the kids went to school, and you're right, they had to look out the window at, like, a dusting of snow on the playground. They were not allowed to play in it. I asked my 10-year-old, I said, what's the right call? And she said, the 2-hour delay is the right call, because it allows you to get up in the morning if you're a young kid, go out and do a snow angel in the backyard, and then get your butt to school. And she was mindful of the fact that they add additional days to the school year here when they get a snow day.
Yeah, I know.
So she, a lot of hype, but I lived in Indiana. I lived in Northeast Indiana. I was covering Notre Dame and driving all over South Bend in Indiana. And I was mindful then that I had no idea what real snow was like.
I know.
You just don't. We don't. I go to East Lansing, Michigan. Oh. They know what to do when it snows. and they don't cancel school. No, they go right through it. They're prepared. The rest of us are looking around going, it's dusting and snow.
In our defense, like Portland, Seattle, like everything's on a hill. In our defense, in the Midwest, everything's flat. So that's
fine.
Just in our defense. But
we still overreact, and we don't know how to handle ourselves. Let's be real.
Freaked out. All right. It was a lengthy one with you today. John Canzano BFT on Twitter. Visit johncanzano.com. It was weekly visit brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. We got something brewing up on the website.
I'm all over right now. The Pac-12 realignment, Pac-12 expansion, media rights. I am all over this stuff right now. So I've got new stuff as it's coming, and I'll always try to share what I know there. And I'm also I've got a special project going on the New World Pac-12 that it's going to launch next week. So tune you in then.
Okay, can't wait. There he is. Check him out on YouTube. When you're there, subscribe to the channel. John Canzano, also up on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, always up at pucksports.com. All right, John, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.